Welcome into Facebook Live to another edition of Berg is the Word. My name is Mark Bergin, and good morning. Happy Thursday. The one-out relief pitcher will now be obsolete in Major League Baseball this coming for the start of the 2020 season. So I'm going to break down for you some of the rule changes that are going to be coming to the league, again, starting in 2020. So Rob Manfred has been discussing, he's the MLB commissioner, has been discussing a lot of rule changes as part of changes he wants to make to the league to try to appeal to more fans. The problem is that he's appealing to nobody. And so I just cannot believe the fact that we're going to have relief pitchers starting in 2020 that will have to face a minimum of 3 batters. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense, especially considering how many changes are made in the course of a postseason game. The fact that left-handed relief pitchers, I think, will now become obsolete. And anyone who knows anything about the sport knows that the pitcher benefits when it's a righty-righty matchup or a lefty-lefty matchup. Imagine this scenario for me really quickly. You're in a postseason game against a great left-handed batter, say like a Bryce Harper. The guy who just signed a record contract in the history of baseball, one of the league's best hitters. You need to get him out late in the game, but you have to bring in a left-handed pitcher to be able to bring that to your advantage. Yet you can't do that now because said pitcher will now have to face at least a minimum of 3 batters. Also, what if the pitcher who's pitching strains his shoulder or lands awkwardly on the mound and strains a groin or a hamstring, and we now have to question that pitcher's legitimacy? This is not a good rule, and they're going to run into problems with this new rule that the MLB is implementing come 2020. There are some good rules that come with these rule changes. For example, Manfred has now decided that a pitch clock is not in the works, and that wasn't a good idea. I told you a lot about that and how they've experimented with this in the minors in previous Facebook Lives and stories that I've written. Not a good idea because it would only be shortening Major League Baseball games by about 10 to 12 minutes overall. But these rule changes, there's going to be less mound visits now, which I think is probably a good thing. But trying to speed up the pace of play isn't going to appeal to someone not watching baseball. And that was my biggest problem with the pitch clock, is you're trying to appeal to fans that aren't going to watch your product regardless. And I've said this time and time and time again. The biggest thing that Major League Baseball could do to appeal to its current fans and to fans of casual interest that really only watch the postseason game or really only watch their favorite teams would be this: get on the forefront of legalizing sports gambling. It's really that simple. More and more states across the country have adopted it. Since the U.S. Supreme Court's ruling in 2018, it is now up to individual states to decide whether or not they want to legalize sports gambling. If Major League Baseball could partner with a casino or sports book and get on the forefront of that and get a slice of the pie of the revenue that's generated by fans who are already betting on these games offshore, that would be a revenue stream that I would focus on if I were the MLB commissioner, versus implementing these silly rule changes. You won't see 40-man rosters in September anymore. Those will be lowered to 28. There will also not be a non-waiver trade deadline, so the July 31st trade deadline starting in 2020 will be the final and the absolute trade deadline. You won't see, a guy clear waivers and make deals based on that. But I really want to know what you think. If you think this new rule change where a relief pitcher will have to face more than a minimum of just 1 batter. I've heard rumors that it will be 3, so that's what I would suspect. But again, Major League Baseball in this decision is going to render the left-handed relief pitcher virtually obsolete. And it's going to cost certain players jobs because now said relief pitcher will have to face a minimum of 3 batters. You can't just bring in a left-handed reliever to get 1 out, maybe 2 outs. That pitcher, he will have to face 3 batters now. I don't understand this rule change by Rob Manfred. And again, I think concentrate on this. from a business standpoint, who are you trying to appeal to in making this decision? Again, my solution is pretty straightforward. As more and more states begin to legalize sports gambling, and you're seeing more and more states adopt this. I know in Mississippi, in New Jersey, there are several states that have either legalized sports gambling or that have legislation on the table that will legalize sports gambling. That's what Rob Manfred should focus on, not these silly rule changes that change how baseball has been played for decades that don't need changing. Again, if you think I'm overreacting to a relief pitcher having to face a minimum of 3 batters, again, this is going to start in the 2020 season. Imagine this scenario. It's late in the playoffs, say in the NLCS game. Your favorite team is going up against a hitter like Bryce Harper, a left-handed batter, and you want to bring in a left-handed relief pitcher to try to get a great hitter like that out. That pitcher now has to face a minimum of 3 batters now. So you can't just bring in the lefty to get a guy like Harper out. He'll have to face at least 2 other batters who could be right-handed batters. It changes the way that the sport is played. And then again, imagine if a team decides, say the pitcher gets hurt or the pitcher fakes an injury in a playoff situation and everyone has to question the legitimacy of the injury because the relief pitcher has to face a minimum of 3 batters. This rule doesn't make any sense. You're going to run into problems. I get that scenario might not come across all that much, but take a page from what happened to the NFL and the NFC Championship game with the Saints and the Rams, where the referees virtually decided that game. That should not happen. The players and how they perform should decide whether a team wins or loses. And it's really that straightforward. Again, my name's Mark Bergin. This is another edition of Berg is the Word. If you enjoyed this discussion, feel free to share it with your friends on Facebook. But I certainly appreciate any of you guys watching. I'm not seeing any questions or anything like that, but if you do after the fact, after this is live, please feel free to reach out to me. I can do my very best to answer them. But Rob Manfred really making decisions that are just really, really questionable. I will say this, I think it's a smart decision not to implement the pitch clock. And again, I've really been harping on one of these leagues deciding to partner with the sportsbook or casino. You've seen FS1 adopt Lock It In, where they have Cousin Sal, Clay Travis, and Todd Furman on talking about sports gambling again as more and more states decide to legalize it. ESPN has also launched their own gambling show now as well. That airs on ESPN News. Brand new, the show just launched. So this is becoming something that people will want to know more and more and more about. If you're, a fan who watches every single game and wants to know immediately what the result of your wager is, whether it's an in-game wager, the result of the game, the result of an individual player's performance, but also the casual fan who can decide, hey, I'm going to bet on this passively, check when it's convenient for me to see how my bet did. You're appealing to so many more people, and that would truly be a way to grow the game, and it could truly change the way that games are watched as well. And that is what I would focus on if I were the MLB commissioner. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and sign off here. Hope all of you have a terrific rest of your Thursdays, rest of your work week as we head into the weekend. But again, my name's Mark Bergin. Always enjoy doing this. Everyone take care. Have a great day. So long, and I'll see you next time.